Several guidelines exist for open data, but in principle, it's data that can be freely used by anyone for any purpose without any restrictions. Most of the time, when we speak of open data, we mean open government data. But in principle, data can come from the private sector, from individuals, or from research institutions as well. The trend toward open data started in the 1990s in the United States, but the UK also has a very consistent open data agenda. Many motivations are behind open data, the most prominent being transparency and accountability of the government and giving citizens access to public information that they already paid for. At the same time, this is also about commerce. It's about giving tech companies access to assets that are currently unused, that lie around on hard drives of government agencies and that are actually extremely valuable. And as a result, we see in the US and in Europe, several services have emerged that draw on open data, such as bus schedules, traffic apps, location services, maps, and also crowdsourced services like OpenStreetMap. Here in the region, in Southeast Asia, open data is still in the very early stages, but nevertheless, out of the 10 countries in the ASEAN, 6 have actually launched their own open data portals, some of them with just a few hundred data sets. The US and the UK follow very strict guidelines for their open data programs, but the countries here in the region pretty much make up their own rules, and open data from one country to the other country varies a great deal. And this can be very confusing, but also frustrating for developers wanting to work commercially with data from the government or with researchers who rely on data that is accurate and relatively straightforward for them to access. In a research project, I disaggregated the open data index into the underlying factors that actually make up and enable open data. There are 6 technological factors and 3 legal factors, 9 factors in total, that allow us to see where exactly certain countries excel or fall short in their open data programs. And we see that countries here in Asia are actually very inconsistent in their open data efforts, especially when it comes to open licenses. It took the US and the UK almost 20 years to get to the point they are now in open data. From the first open data roadmaps to PSI, public sector information reuse policies, getting their freedom of information laws right, and setting up the organizational and legal framework that actually allows data sharing between government agencies and the public. So it's no surprise that it will take a while for the countries in Southeast Asia to get open data right. One issue though here in the region is the lack of laws that force the government to make data available to citizens on request. So without these freedom of information laws, a very important building block of open data, as we would expect it from the US or the UK, is missing. And that can be a problem for the countries here in the region. Open data is extremely powerful, for example, in rapid disaster response. We saw this when an earthquake hit Haiti in 2010, where volunteers very quickly, hours after the impact, added data to OpenStreetMap that actually helped UN forces on the ground coordinate their efforts much more effectively than if they had to organize all the information on their own. In Southeast Asia, there are great opportunities for open data. For example, the mitigation of climate change, the ASEAN economic community, food insecurity, rapid urbanization, migration, etc., etc., they all benefit vastly from open data if countries can get it right. But this requires that countries improve their capacity in technology and also the enabling legal and organizational framework to make open data possible. When that happens, it can be an extremely powerful tool for sustainable development or innovation on a massive scale.